Chapter 11. The Power of Compassion. 1. What is compassion? Tolerance is an important mindset in life, meaning to accept and respect the differences between individuals, respect each person's freedom and rights, without judging, evaluating, or concluding based on those differences. 2. The value of compassion. In the Nikaya scriptures, the Theravada collection gives an example of a handful of salt. When we put a handful of salt into a glass of water, the water becomes salty and undrinkable. But when we put salt into a river, the river remains clear because the river is vast and wide. Tolerance is like the story of a handful of salt. In each of us, there is a capacity for tolerance, but it lies deep within everyone's heart. We do not need to go anywhere to find it. Just turn back to recognize the inherent tolerance we have. When our heart is just a small glass of water, how can it hold that handful of salt? That is suffering. But when our heart's capacity is like a river, we can hold everything. We will be happy. Remember, when we do not tolerate and forgive each other, the pain and suffering do not disappear, but only hide in a corner of the soul. If prolonged, they will gradually grow bigger and become internal conflicts, which are the causes of psychological diseases. Therefore, let's practice being the river, capable of embracing all difficulties with compassion and tolerance. 3. How to be tolerant? To be tolerant in life, we need to listen to and understand the views and values of others, without judging or evaluating them based on differences in gender, age, race, religion, viewpoints, or any other aspect. A closed heart hinders our ability to forgive. We need to nourish compassion every day to have the energy to spread compassion to everyone, and then the heart of compassion can be opened. Tolerance has the ability to transform annoyances and suffering into happiness. To achieve compassion, we must practice love, forgiveness thoroughly. When that happens, the capacity of the heart will expand to contain all the annoyances and pains of life. If we cannot forgive, we cannot expand the heart. An apology alone is also a very powerful weapon, because then we let go of our ego, ourself. It is just that in life, the ego does not allow us to apologize to each other. It is also because of that ego that families break apart and friends and colleagues conflict. Knowing the root cause, let's work from the root. 4. 3 levels of practicing compassion. Talking about tolerance is talking about a person with a generous heart who is always open and ready to accept all the favorable and adverse circumstances of life. The more we practice and nurture love and forgiveness, the greater our heart's capacity. When the heart is still small, it cannot contain things that go against our desires, so suffering arises. If the capacity of the heart grows, it can contain more things that go against our desires, and happiness will be present. Simultaneously, our tranquility is immediately forfeited, replaced by a multitude of concerns and successive outbursts of rage, propelling us into a sequence of daydreams and unease. Despite our uncertainty about the accuracy of our perceptions and sensations, we tend to instinctively respond without delay, often resulting in distress and agony. This guide is intended for individuals who lack knowledge on how to engage in mindfulness and are susceptible to being swayed by outside factors. Question 2. What are the consequences of lacking compassion, constantly reacting to others, and lacking the ability to express love and forgiveness? The heart is perpetually sealed, firmly closed, existing internally, displaying a countenance of distress, externally quiet and reserved, but internally contemplative, experiencing a desire to convey affection, yet facing difficulty in expressing it openly. often perceived as indifferent by others, consistently exhibiting unease when someone requests assistance, perpetually discontent with everything, desiring to respond to everything, refusing to accept. It can be challenging to forgive someone who has caused us harm, whether it was intentional or unintentional. Consistently displaying signs of irritation and discomfort, akin to consuming a glass of excessively salty water. In order to undergo a transformation, it is necessary to acquire knowledge and engage in regular meditation sessions to promote the cultivation of mindfulness. Level 2. Like putting a handful of salt into a basin of water. This level is for those who have learned and begun to practice nurturing loving kindness and forgiveness. Question 1. What does it mean to put a handful of salt into a basin of water? Putting a handful of salt into a basin of water makes the water drinkable because its saltiness is reduced, though it may still be somewhat salty. This means that at level 2, practitioners have awareness of suffering and understand its causes. They know how to practice mindfulness meditation and are beginning to transform their minds, gradually expanding the capacity of their hearts. Level 2 is a stage in the practice of loving and forgiveness. Therefore, we should always remember to practice expressing love and forgiveness consistently and continuously to bring happiness and peace from now until the end of life. Question 2. How to practice loving? Love is expressed through specific actions, such as a compassionate gaze, attentive listening, kind words, acts of kindness, compassionate thoughts, and always creating conditions for those around us to experience joy and happiness. Question 3. How is forgiveness practiced? To see if we have truly forgiven or not, carefully observe your own mind. If forgiveness is just empty words and there is no inward practice, then all acceptance is merely suppression, and in reality, the wounds still remain deep within our hearts. In this case, the heart's capacity to forgive for an offensive remark, an action that caused harm, etc., remains superficial. The lack of forgiveness and acceptance of the offender still lurks deep within us. Therefore, to eradicate the suffering in this life, one must know to turn inward and continuously observe one's own mind. Level 3. Like putting a pinch of salt into a river. This level is for those who have learned to nurture and practice the heart of love and forgiveness. Question 1. What does it mean to put a pinch of salt into a river? The river contains a substantial amount of water. Consequently, adding a small amount of salt, whether it be a pinch or a bowlful, to the river does not result in the river becoming saline. As a result, the water in the river retains its potability and maintains a delightful and invigorating flavor. At this stage, after extensive cultivation of compassion, the heart's capacity has expanded infinitely, resembling that of an immeasurable bodhisattva characterized by boundless compassion. Question 2. So what is the purpose of having an open-hearted capacity? Just like a river can contain a massive amount of salt without being affected, we too, with a steadfast heart, have the strength to face and contain all the pains of life, all the ups and downs, with a serene and liberated attitude, and the capacity of the heart is opened to contain words of insult, words of criticism, words of slander, words of coercion and imposition, words of irrational jealousy, frequently spiteful words, words that harm oneself and one's family, actions of indifference towards spouse, actions of neglect towards children, actions limited to observation, external care, actions indifferent towards work, actions with an aloof and indifferent attitude, actions of disdain, condescension, actions of violence, divorce, or separation. The boundless capacity for tolerance and acceptance will lead us to the path of happiness and peace. 5. The results of practicing compassion and acceptance. By practicing tolerance and expanding the capacity of our hearts, we will achieve the following results. 1. Achieving the expression of love in our daily lives. 2. Achieving forgiveness through practice. 3. Learning how to cultivate mindfulness. We attain these results because we learn from the good and bad experiences of life. We gain first-hand experience of life. We understand the meaning of happiness and suffering. We achieve understanding. We gain mastery over our minds. We acquire a portion of wisdom. Our heart's capacity has expanded. Our wisdom helps transform suffering into happiness. Try to observe the reality of daily life. If the heart remains closed and sealed, then when there is an inappropriate word or action, we immediately react, resist, refuse to accept, and do not want to carry out it with a mind full of prejudices. And when prejudices arise, along with a series of unwholesome actions, then failure in resolving issues, at work or in daily life, is inevitable. With an expanded capacity of the heart, we will gain mastery over ourselves and over every emotion. Therefore, no matter what happens, we can calmly resolve it with wholesome actions, without resistance or negative reactions. Success will come and happiness will be present